A lot of people have been asking about this keyboard, a lot of people are wrong about this keyboard, and a lot of people have probably never heard of this keyboard. So this is the NTK61 from NUX. It's a MIDI controller with aftertouch, a bunch of controls on board, and it even has a built-in trackpad, which I have never seen in a MIDI controller before, all for less than $400. Big thank you to NUX for sending this over to review. As always, this is going to be an honest review, and spoiler alert, there's a lot that I love about this controller, but there are also more concerns than I expected to have with it. I'm gonna go over all of that so that you can know whether or not this keyboard is good for your use case. So let's talk about what all the NTK61 has to offer, because in theory, this is a very promising, feature-packed, practical MIDI controller. You get 9 faders, which are quite small but feel really good and work to keep this keyboard very compact. You also get 8 assignable knobs, which feel very good. I have to say this because I mentioned in my review of the NUX NAI-24 that the knobs felt pretty cheap and were a big disappointment. But these, on the other hand, feel so good. Definitely better than the Keylab or Launch Key. They're solid and have a great amount of resistance to them, so they're not going anywhere on their own. On the 61 key version, you get 8 assignable pads, and you actually get 2 banks of them, which is nice. I feel that I get a greater dynamic range when I play the keys versus the pads, but that's for any MIDI controller. Now, I have mixed feelings about everything on the left-hand side of the keyboard. On one hand, I love how they packed so much into this one area. I personally just think it makes more sense to be on the right-hand side, but maybe that's just me. I really like this display. It has a lot of useful information on it. For instance, you can see your split point, octave, transpose, pitch and mod wheels, BPM, as well as the status of your note repeat, scale, and ARP modes, all on the same screen at the same time, and it's very easy to identify. You also have this 5-way encoder, which feels really good and helps you navigate the controller menus on the keyboard itself, but you can also use it to navigate your DAW, which is awesome. Underneath, you have some classic transport controls, which if you're a Logic Pro user, make sure you make it to the cons section of the video because there's quite a bit to unpack there, but I want to make sure that I get through this part before all of that. You can actually use these DAW and MIDI buttons to quickly switch between DAW and MIDI mode. So maybe you'd want to use DAW mode to control your faders and pans, but then switch to MIDI mode where you've assigned controls for your favorite virtual instruments. You get a tap tempo here, which is nice. The pitch and mod wheels feel really solid. And then you have your octave buttons, which also function as transpose buttons using the shift button at the bottom. The keys themselves are semi-weighted with aftertouch, and they actually feel pretty good. I think I prefer these keys over the Keylab Essential keys. Though I do want to make it clear that when I say these keys feel pretty good, I'm really saying for a semi-weighted key bed, these are pretty good. I get comments every once in a while that say, "Hey Caleb, you said these keys felt pretty good, but they feel nothing like my grandma's piano." I'm planning on doing a full video explaining all the various aspects of buying a keyboard, but for the sake of this video, I'll just say that fully weighted keys are the way to go for a more realistic piano feel, but those make your keyboard much heavier and much more expensive. So semi-weighted is a great alternative and is very common in this price range. It keeps things portable and affordable. You know what else is affordable? Subscribing to this channel. It's actually free, but only do it if you're actually enjoying this, in which case maybe consider hitting that like button as well. Thank you. The aftertouch seems to work well, but I feel you do really have to dig in to activate it. On the back, you get a power switch, USB, sustain input, and MIDI output, which is pretty standard for this price range. But finally, let's talk about the trackpad, because I just want to say I made a couple of short form videos just because I was like, wow, this is a cool feature. I want to hear what other people think of this. But instead, people were saying, "You idiot, that's an XY pad. They've been around for decades." No, it's not. It's a trackpad. I responded with kindness, as I try my best to do, and some of them just deleted their comments. Now, I had never seen this on a MIDI controller before, and I think it's cool, but I did learn from some other comments that Korg made a keyboard years ago that had an XY pad that could also function as a trackpad. So this isn't the first of its kind, but it's certainly not a common feature. In terms of quality, I think it works really well here. It is very responsive, and it should be because it's a wired connection. The left and right click buttons underneath aren't the best feeling, but they certainly work well, and you shouldn't expect something like an Apple trackpad on a MIDI controller. Overall, the NTK61 feels really solid. I don't know that I mentioned that before. Everything about this keyboard feels more durable than other MIDI controllers I've tested recently. Now, this is where things start to fall apart. Just to get this out of the way, my sustain input does not work at all. And while I haven't seen this anywhere on the internet as a known issue, I do feel I should mention it, even if it's just mine. But let's talk about some stuff that I know will not affect just me. I'm pretty much exclusively a Logic Pro user. One of the big selling points of this keyboard is built-in DAW profiles for all of the major DAWs, including Logic. However, the Logic profile does not seem to work. And this keyboard comes with a whole DAW setup guide, which I really appreciate, but it did not work for Logic Pro. All of my faders are controlling pitch, and my transport buttons are playing notes, which is a huge disappointment. Now, you can still go into your DAW and manually assign everything, but that can be a pain, and it's literally one of the selling points of this keyboard. Another workaround for Logic, if you don't want to manually assign things, is to use the GarageBand profile, but it seems to use hotkeys instead of MIDI commands, and will still only kind of work. I of course did reach out to NUX about this issue, and according to them, this is an issue with a recent Logic update, so it seems to be something they're working on fixing. They also said that the sustain pedal was a setup issue, though I promise you I have spent hours upon hours making sure that I've tried everything so that I could share my solution here, but it seems that I just received a dud. Also, every time you start up the keyboard, the default DAW profile it pulls up is Cubase, which if you use Cubase, good for you. If you don't use Cubase, you'll have to change profiles every time, which is really easy to do, but it would make much more sense to stay on the most recent profile used. So not many cons, but some pretty major cons in my opinion. I can't speak on the functionality of the other DAW profiles because I just use Logic, but like I said before, you can get around this issue by manually mapping your controls within your DAW, so just keep that in mind. Before we get into my final thoughts, I did want to make sure you know that I have affiliate links in the description of this video. So if you ever want to buy new gear, whether it's this keyboard or anything else, you can go to any of my videos and click on one of the affiliate links. And if you purchase anything through those links, it is a great way to support this channel without having to pay any extra money to do so. I really appreciate you doing so. Let's get into my final thoughts. There's a lot that I love about this keyboard, but am I ready to recommend it to other people? If I'm being optimistic, I'd say this could be a great pick for some people, assuming everything works as expected for their setup and DAW. If I'm being realistic, I hesitate to recommend this keyboard yet, because with my specific experience, I was very disappointed and even frustrated at times. I hope that all of this stuff gets resolved, as I know this is a pretty recent release from NUX. I also want to say that up until this point, I've been super impressed with the value you get from NUX gear for the money. Hopefully this is just a dud and a temporary software issue. But that begs the question, if not this keyboard, what MIDI controller should you get? Well, I actually made a playlist with all of my keyboard related videos, whether it be guides, reviews, or comparisons, so that you can really nail down what MIDI controller is right for you. So click here for that playlist, and as always, thanks for hanging out.